Good morning, afternoon and evening everyone, and welcome to week 3 of the 100% Cricket Leading the Game series. The webinar will run for 1 hour, starting with a panel discussion with Anju Jain and Matthew Mott, hosted by Mel Jones, talking 100% dedication and coaching female teams and players to reach their potential. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over to the host for today, Mel Jones.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Holly, and welcome to week 3 of 100% Cricket, and it's one of my favourite topics. We are talking all things coaching, and look at the journey to which we've got to for episode 3. It's almost the perfect segue. In episode 1, we chatted all things leadership with Claire Connor, Katie Sadlier, specifically about the ways in which we can develop strategic plans and having the vision. In week 2, we chatted all things high performance with Uruj Mumtaz Khan and Julia Price, talking about the way in which you can build a culture around attitudes and values to get the best out of high performance programs. So basically, all the hard work's really been done for the coaches because they just step in, they tour, they travel, they throw some balls, they pat some people on the back and take all the glory. Now, I'm tipping our 2 guests this evening or this morning or this afternoon, probably going to have a little bit to say about that. Now, our first guest isn't quite online yet, so we're going to grill the other one to start with, but wonderful to have former Indian player, captain and coach in Anju Jain. She went on from being the Indian coach to the Bangladesh coach in 2018, and what a year that was for them. We're certainly going to delve a little bit more into that as well. And of course, Julia Price from last week will be wrapped because the Keepers Union just gets stronger and stronger with all these wonderful experts on 100% cricket. And we also have Matthew Mott, who is probably still no doubt beaming a little bit, and not from winning the T20 World Cup, but I think for not having to get on stage with Katy Perry and the trio of Burns, Molyneux and Strano to show off his dance moves. A first-class cricketer in his own right for Queensland and for Victoria. He became the New South Wales men's head coach and Glamorgan head coach in his coaching pathway, and then became the Australian women's head coach in 2015. He is now a reality TV star as he played a pretty pivotal role in the TV documentary Beyond the Boundary. Motty, what was it like having a TV crew follow you around 24/7 on the Ashes?
G'day Mel, how you going? Thanks for that lovely introduction. Yeah, it was crazy, that one. That was the first sort of taste of that we'd had, and to be honest, it was sold to us as a bit of a fly on the wall documentary, but we had an extensive crew with big boom mics and stuff like that following us around, so we were a bit self-conscious around the toss and stuff like that, and I think Heather Knight in particular was a little bit put out a few times when our whole crew just followed Meg and myself around, so it was a bit intimidating at times, but I thought it come across quite well, and we've actually got another one of the World Cup coming up in September, which should be a goodie.
Oh, you'll be an old hand by then, won't you?
I hope so. I certainly didn't swear as much as Justin Langer, so I'm very happy that I didn't get a retribution from my mother.
Let's chat. We've chatted numerous times about your coaching pathway. I think it'd be great for people who are tuning in, because I know we've got a variety of different people on their own coaching pathway at the moment. I'd love to know about your transition from coaching within the men's system to coaching within the women's system. Was it planned? Was it always on the radar, or was it something that came out of the blue?
I think it came out of the blue, to be honest. You mentioned there that I was over in Glamorgan coaching in county cricket and enjoying it quite a bit. And I spoke to Pat Howard, who was the high performance manager at the time, about coming back into Australia. And he basically said there was no jobs available at that stage, but we were desperate to get my son into school back in Brisbane. And it just so happened that I was around for doing some bits and pieces roles for 6 months with Cricket Australia in both the men's and women's pathway, and got a taste for it there. And for me, coaching's coaching, whether you're coaching juniors, males, females. You just got to find what works for that group. So I wouldn't say it was an easy transition, but it was certainly one that I thoroughly enjoyed, and obviously took over a team that Catherine Fitzpatrick, the previous coach, left in a really good way, and I got to take over a very successful team. So I felt lucky. I watched the players come through. Obviously, watched a bit of you guys play in your era, but I hadn't watched a lot in the sort of 5 years previous. So got to know the players, got to learn how they motivate themselves, and got out there. And I'd have to say I've absolutely enjoyed every minute of it.
You say coaching's coaching, but coming into coaching a women's team for the first time, did you do anything any differently in terms of the preparation for it all?
Look, I think any time you take over any new job, the first part is just obviously taking a back step and seeing how the team operates. So I did a lot of research, asked a lot of former players and actual, Meg and Elisa Healy about how the team was running, and you just try and put a little bit of your own stamp on it. But as I said, it was a successful team, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. But in saying that, the first probably year and a half that I was in the role, and I know you're going to go into it a little bit later, but we didn't have the success that I think the team should have had, and we got a big kick in the pants in the 2017 World Cup. And I think from that moment on, the team has actually really found a sweet spot and just a new motivation to be the best that they possibly can be every day. And I'd say the last 2 years has been the most enjoyable 2 years of my coaching career, and to see the team itself go out and lead the way and reinvent themselves, I reckon has been really fun to watch, and probably had one of the best seats in the house.
Yeah, you probably do, don't you? That's probably why there's TV cameras just following you around all the time as well. We're going to flip to, because some of the things that you just mentioned there, I think is probably pretty poignant as well, to one of the poll questions is, what level of coaching would you most associate yourself with? And these are the people that have been tuning in as well. 45% are not a coach yet. When you look at something like that, and you can give your elevator pitch here for 30 seconds on why would you be a coach?
I think coaching is one of the most rewarding jobs you could possibly do. I think, I grew up trying to be a teacher, I think, and for me, that's just part of my DNA. My parents are all teachers, and they gave me this willingness to try and impart some knowledge on others and help people. And I think it's in your blood. I think those who aren't coaches yet, it's certainly not, it's not all beer and Skittles, as we like to say. You made a pretty rosy picture of what it's like, but there's there's certainly some lonely times as a head coach in particular. I think you wear the weight of the team quite a bit, you ride the results, but it's those little coaching moments, and when you see former players come up and say something you might have said as an offhand comment that they found as a turning point in their cricket. I mean, that gets you out of bed every day. So I think winning's fantastic, and it's very much part of the job, but for me, where the real joy is just seeing players improve. And I've been in, as I said, in the Pathways program, coaching young girls and boys, and seeing them master something that they hadn't done before. That's an amazing experience, an amazing skill to have, I guess, for people, and something to aspire to.
Do you think that there's different types of coaches for different levels? We looked at the 4 main levels on that tab there, and one of them was the entry level and sort of the grassroots, and there's been so much research done on why girls and boys play sport more broadly, and cricket, and we know that girls play it for a variety of different reasons to what boys do, and that shifts as it goes through the pathway. If you were chatting to a whole room of coaches, would you say that there's a certain personality type or skill set that is different from coaching introduction players in terms of elite?
Yeah, absolutely, and all equally as important. I think, that obviously the problem with coaching is that the elite level obviously gets the greatest remuneration, so that's the most attractive for people. But we say time and time again, we actually need our best coaches around that 15, 16-year-old age group, where they're probably making some choices on what sport they're going to pursue and whether it's going to be a career in cricket. So I think all the way down the pathway, I think back so fondly about some of the coaches I had in junior cricket. Were they cut out to be an elite coach? Probably not. Did they love the game? Were they passionate about it? Could they, engender a love for the game? And I think that's what coaching my young boy at the moment, who's 11, I've had more contact time with him, obviously, through this coronavirus, and I'm not sure what his take on it is, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've been playing backyard cricket with a taped up tennis ball, and just getting back to developing that love of the game. And I think then comes, as they're getting a little bit older, a little bit harder on the technical side of the game, and you can impart that knowledge. But I certainly don't want to be one of those parents that overcoaches your own kid. So that's a job for other coaches. But my job as a parent and someone at that age is to make sure they just love that game. And if you love the game of cricket, you want to practice, you want to get better. that's a gift that a coach can give you at such a young age.
Okay, this will probably be the first of numerous times that I do go off script, but I do want to pick you up on the love of the game and playing backyard cricket. I grew up playing backyard cricket at my grandparents' place. We've had a variety of people talking about gully cricket in Pakistan and Bangladesh, or street cricket, tennis ball cricket. How important, I know in Australia we don't see it as much, where you're driving on the road and everyone sort of scatters because it takes the rubbish bin off the road anymore. How important is it to enjoy the game away from the rules and regulations and just play?
It's everything, and we talk about it a lot in our team, and one of our mantras is just playing with a smile on your face. And I think that came out. People who watched the World Cup, we probably didn't in the first couple of games. I think we no doubt took a little bit of that burden of expectation at home World Cup, and the pressure to sell out the MCG. And I think you could see that the team was rigid and tight and not really going out and have a fun experience. And it wasn't until we probably looked down the barrel of exiting the tournament at dawn that when we play our best cricket, we play with a smile on our face. We go out there, we have fun with our mates, we throw ourselves around and get in the contest. So certainly something as a team we've really tried to make sure we do. I remember something Alex Blackwell said a few years ago when she was here, that throughout her career the game had become a burden to her, and she wanted to go out and play like a 12-year-old self. And to me, that's what it's all about. When you're a 12-year-old, all you want to do is go out there and have fun with your mates. And it's unfortunate that sometimes professional cricket, because there's a lot riding on it personally, we forget that. So when we train hard, but we try and have fun, and we make sure that every time we train with a real purpose. But we come away thinking, geez, that was good fun. How good was that?
The next episode of 100% Cricket is talking all things innovation. So I'm going to bring up to our next guest that Matthew Mott said you can't go out first ball. That's going to be the next innovation of cricket.
Absolutely, I'm all for that.
Yeah, why not? Coaching philosophies. We chatted to Uruj and Julia last week about their philosophies on high performance programs. For you as a coach, I'd love to get your take, and whether or not it's actually shifted as you've gone along and developed your coaching along the lines, or has it been pretty consistent all the way through?
I think you've always, from the moment you take your first coaching job, that the first thing they ask you is what's your philosophy, and I think you stumble around and come up with a few cliches. But to me, it definitely evolves. I don't think it goes too far away from your core beliefs, and I think you, as a player as well, you're always influenced by people both positively and negatively that you've engaged with. But over time it shapes itself. I know when I transitioned from playing to coaching, there was an AFL coach by the name of Paul Roos, who probably won't be known to everyone here, but I'm sure you do. And he became a very successful coach. But for him, it was about that transition from playing to coaching and learning the lessons that you didn't want to hear, like not sugarcoating a message, that sort of stuff, and not pigeonholing players. And I think that helped my initial shaping of my philosophy. But to me, it sort of goes back a little bit to what we just spoke about before. Fundamentally, I think it's a game to be enjoyed. Everything should be, it's a game that we first took up because we love playing it. And as a coach, I think the biggest thing you can do is enhance that and grow that. And to me, it's a player-centered, player-led environment. The coach needs to be, help facilitate and help drive, but there's never been a great team that wasn't self-sufficient and self-driven. So it's the coach's job sometimes to just get out of the way and let the players work it out. We talk a lot about training ugly and making mistakes so that we learn and get better. So all those things, I guess, are interwoven over the last couple of years. And probably just the more you study coaching and learn from other people, it probably just formalises some of those hunches that you had when you were starting out.
It brings me to that question you mentioned about having the hard conversation, and coaches need to have that probably almost daily sometimes, but particularly on tours with players. How is that something that you've had to work on in terms of your own personal development? And the way in which you deliver the message, I'm guessing, is also quite different from player to player?
Yeah, it is. It's a great question, man. I think it's something I've really learned, and I put a quote up the other day from the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, about just empathy. And I think that often sympathy and empathy get mixed up. And I'm a personality type where I do like to see others do well. And, you know, potentially as a younger coach, I probably avoided some of those tough, hard conversations because I didn't want to upset people. But over time, you gradually get a bit of resilience and understanding of probably how to intervene in a nice collaborative approach, rather than basically it's this way, it's my way or the highway. It's more of a, this is what we need to, this is the direction we need to go. How's the best way to facilitate this? So I think learning, you know, from making mistakes as a coach and helping have empathy for other players and understanding the challenges. I actually think, you said I played first class cricket. I was a battling first class cricketer who sort of hung in there and through a lot of grit and hard work at times. But my struggles as a player, I think, has helped me have empathy for some of the struggles of the players in our squad. And you know, when you see it through those eyes, you can actually help and direct a little bit more. And I suppose ask the right questions so that they can find their way out of that little hole that they might be in.
I want to take you back to 2015 when you took over the coach of the Australian women's cricket team. And I guess when you take over a side, there's a want and desire to sort of put your own stamp on things. As successful as they had been underneath Catherine Fitzpatrick, you're coming in, you've probably got some different ideas about how to go about things. And then there's, I suppose, the balance between setting up that culture. We'll get to the skills bit in a minute, but I want to get your thoughts on how do you engage the players collectively, but also the leadership group and yourself to work at building that, or developing a culture, building on it, shifting it slightly to something that you think would fit well for the team?
Yeah, another good question, because I think we're in a real transition phase. Basically, it was the start of professionalism as well. So it was a really interesting phase in terms of expectations. Obviously, the players were coming up to Brisbane a lot more, getting a lot more contact time with each other and training on a more regular basis. So for some, it was a really difficult adjustment as well. So we saw some players come out of that system, but also I think a nucleus of young players who'd been with the team for a while was starting to emerge, and it was a perfect storm, I guess, to take over with the likes of Healy's and the Perrys, the Lannings, all starting to make their own in the game. And I think that's one thing that we've tried to create, and we talk about it is a leaderful environment. And to me, the most enjoyable thing is to see young 18, 19-year-old players like the Warehams and the Vlaminks come straight in and do well. And to me, that's a sign that there is strong leadership. We don't have a formal leadership group as such, but we often give leadership opportunities to different players in different situations to try and bring that out. And we expect our young players to come in and contribute straight away. We don't expect them to sit up the back of the room and be too scared to say anything. And often that's difficult and confronting for them, but it's just about getting familiar with having an opinion, having a voice. And Meg in particular and Rach have really tried to bring that out in this current playing group.
When you were coaching at New South Wales and Glamorgan, did you have a leadership group? Where's the shift in thought around going from captain, vice and another senior player sort of working at the majority of the decision making to something that's more I won't even say that word, more like a group chime in to try and figure out the best thing for the team?
Yeah, I don't have a hard set rule on this. I've seen leadership groups work well in the past as well, and I know a lot of the footy teams were swear by a leadership group. But I guess looking at the team at that time, I thought Meg was emerging as a leader. Alex Blackwell was still around then and had been around the team for a while, and we just went back to a more traditional setup, but just trying to encourage some of those other players to contribute. And you know, we've just gone through our range of contract meetings, and to a person, a lot of the conversation was around leadership and opportunities to really lead on and off the field. So we always say you don't need a title beside your name to lead, and I think we live and breathe that every day. I really do. Our team meetings have gone from the coaches talking to the coaches sitting back and just let's see what we got here. And there's been some really open and honest discussion about where we've been good and where we need to improve.
It's probably been one of the biggest changes I would think within coaching has been sort of the coaching sort of stepping back and allowing the players. I'd love to get your thoughts on where you think the biggest changes in the game has happened. I always, whenever I get asked this question, I just go culottes to pants. It was just a game changer. No more stars on the knees. It was just absolutely brilliant. But I'm tipping there's a few more from your side of things.
Oh, I certainly think that's a big one. I think that I never had to play in them, but they didn't look that great for jumping around and diving so much. So I think that's been a great innovation. Look, I think there's been so many. When I first got in the role, I would say that the batting had gone a long way ahead of the bowling in the time that I'd been there, and I think spin was starting to really choke the game up there for a while, and we were playing with 4 spinners at one stage. But the most exciting thing for me is now the emergence of some fast bowlers coming through in the game. And I think that's sort of the last frontier, and I think everyone wants to see that pace in the game. They want to see bowlers like Taylor or Mink come in and be able to bowl a few bumpers and change the game up. But to me as well, just the evolution of the bowlers' plans. Go back to that 2017 World Cup, we were pretty one-dimensional. We didn't have too many backup plans when teams challenged us, and now every player in our team knows exactly what their plan A is, their B is, and their C, and sometimes a D, like when it's really turning to custard. So I just think just the conversations to me has been the evolution. I think one of my criticisms of our team when I first got in there wasn't those good conversations around coffee about cricket. Cricket was something that was only spoken about at the ground, and now people will have some really good conversations around how players can get better just in their casual way they go about their life. But the other side of that is our team is really good at switching off now as well. And I just gave Elisa Healy compliments about she go out and play golf on a day off and make sure she recharges and turns up ready for training the next day.
I'd just like to say that I didn't bring up 2017. You brought it up. Okay.
Yeah, that was a preemptive strike. So.
Perfect. I think probably a few people watching and listening into this probably ears pricked up a little bit when you spoke about fast bowling, because it's probably been one of the areas that I think a lot of people got excited about at the start of the World Cup before the injury to Taylor. How important do you think it is for the game more broadly to have every top 10 nation having at least 1 or 2 bowlers that can seriously get the ball through, and something that we've chatted about as well? What's the top level? Can we start to see players getting through to that 130 mark?
Yeah, look, I think I think it's come up before. What we don't want to do is just try and replicate the men's game, and I think a lot of people from outside will talk about different innovations. I know you mentioned the other day about shortening the pitch and fastening the game up. To me, it's about playing on good surfaces. If we've got surfaces that everyone's a chance to play a part in the game, I think that's going to be a really big part of the next 5 to 10 years, and making sure that we've got a product that people love watching. And it doesn't have to be compared to the men's game, but I spoke to you in the lead up to this, and for me, we're getting a lot of traditionalists watch our game at the moment, because it's not a brute force game. It's a pardon me, it's a highly skilled game at the moment. There's a really good contest between bat and ball, and I don't know anyone recently who's watched the game and said, no, I won't watch that again. The overwhelming response is that is a highly skilled game, and I want to watch that again. And 86,000 at the MCG is testimony to that people are enjoying the product. They're not just there because they're friends and family anymore. They actually want to go and watch a great game of cricket. And that was just such a great showpiece. That entire World Cup, seeing Thailand go out and play with us, like we talked about, playing with a smile on our face, like we were absolutely loving what they brought to that tournament, and it was just such a great advertisement for the women's game. I'd
just like to confirm that I'm not a fan of shortening the pitches. It was just a discussion that we were having in terms of the overlay of making the men's game look like, or the women's game look like the men's game. You also mentioned there talking cricket. I think, I coached our local cricket club for a number of years, and a lot of the young girls coming through would come down and absolutely love playing, but didn't really watch it that much on television. What would be your take, particularly to a lot of the coaches out there, about the encouragement of watching cricket on TV to understand game sense and the like, but also talking about it more?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think we're lucky in this country. We've got the Big Bash and the Women's Big Bash as well. So there's a bit more crossover, I guess, than there used to be, and in watching the game. And obviously, we tend to only play the two formats, but it's something I reckon our team's got a lot better at is watching Test cricket as well. And it was interesting leading into that Test match in England. Just the amount of conversations and probably the lack of actual knowledge about Test cricket was really interesting, even from some of our senior players. But the fact we only play it every couple of years, and they don't get to watch a lot of Shield cricket, and probably playing when the men's team's on, it was an obvious that they hadn't watched a lot of that sort of game. But certainly in T20, the Big Bash has had a big influence on tactics and those conversations. And the teams now are pretty closely aligned, so they rub shoulders with each other in and around practice and do a lot of stuff together. So I think that build up, that acumen of cricket knowledge is certainly improving at a very fast rate.
And just confirming there, we had one of the infographics coming up here. What would attract more female coaches to be involved in all levels of cricket? An interesting one there for me is 19% of people saying strong role models. You yourself have worked with and started developing some of the big sort of names, previous names and players now coming through the coaching stream, like the likes of Shelley Nitschke and Leah Poulton. Do you see that as that you can't be what you can't see? So the more of an opportunity we can get females out there front and centre. Julia Price working with the Brisbane Heat with the guys team. Is that one of those really proactive ways to get more females involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And not having a little dig at you here, but probably our greatest challenge is keeping our potentially best coaches out of the media box. And, it's obviously an easy route to go down for some ex-players it's an attractive way to get out there. But, we need to probably be a bit more proactive, and it's something we've certainly addressed within our team. And Meg Lanning did a level 3 with Ray Chains and Elise Filani last year. They're about to get accreditation for that. We've got the likes of Elisa Healy, hopefully, and Megan Shute will do theirs in the next year. And across the board, we're trying to encourage everyone to do level 2 coaching. And the benefits are obvious. I mean, I think just from the knowledge that you pick up in these coaching courses, I know the amount of different conversations I've had with those three who've done the level 3, because they sort of get the method and the madness. When we're not giving all the answers all the time, it's not because we're holding back because we want to hold back the knowledge. It's so they explore their own game in their own way. And I think it's huge benefits to doing those courses first and foremost, but then getting those players in our coaching system. And the shame is potentially in your era that there wasn't that natural link to get back into coaching, whereas there is now. I mean, there's opportunities. We've got a lot more teams, obviously, and they can get opportunities in whether it be and it shouldn't be limited to coaching females. I'd like to think that Julia has opened a path for others to be there, and the different skill set that females can bring in. And we spoke about the natural one of maybe a little bit more empathy and be able to work with some of those players who are struggling in the initial part. And there's no reason why they can't go on to be head coaches in the men's game as well.
It's interesting you said that. Pia Sundhage is a former Swedish player, and she was coach of the Swedish women's football team, now coach of the Brazil women's football team. And she was asked during, I think it was the 2016 Rio Olympics, by a journalist, could a woman coach a men's national team? And I'm going to take the expletive out of the answer, but she basically said, well, Angela Merkel runs a whole country. So to all of a sudden put coaching as something that's, bigger than anything anyone could do, it seems quite ridiculous, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, you only have to look at some of the, as you've mentioned the politician there. I'm a huge fan of Jacinta Ardern as well. And, why not? It's about leadership. It's about connection. It's about getting the best in people around you. And there's absolutely no reason why gender plays a part in that at all. So the key is we've just got to attract the best coaches coming in there. And I think, that is something that is definitely part of what I'm trying to do, and our coaching staff's trying to do is bring on the next line of coaches and make sure they've got the skills and that they can then be role models for the generation after them.
Motty, you're looking a little bit too relaxed. I think we know each other too much, so you better get comfortable because I'm going to throw it open now. I'm going to ask a few questions from the field, and I'll tell you what, from the last couple of weeks, they have been absolutely bang on. So yes, take your water, get yourself comfortable. I'm going to start with let's have a look here. And I'm going to start with Angela from Ghana Cricket. What are some of the tips you would give to a female coach to help make it a successful experience?
I think what I've learned over time is be yourself and be authentic. I think when I first got into the role as a coach, I had a picture of what a coach should be like, and I was probably a little bit too serious, and I just wasn't being myself. So I think I got some really good advice from our physio at the time, Patrick Farhad, who'd been around for 20 years, and he noticed the change in me especially from an assistant coach to a head coach, and he gave me some really good honest feedback on me not really being myself. So I think first and foremost, be yourself, be authentic, try and develop a connection with players, and a lot of the time that's about listening, not talking. And I think that's the hardest thing, is people probably expect naturally that coaches are going to lead and talk a lot, but I've observed someone like Trevor Bayliss as a head coach. I was his assistant, went on to coach England, and he said very little. He's a very different style to me, but he said very little. But when he spoke, everybody sat up and took notice. So he was authentic to himself. He wasn't an outgoing guy, but he didn't try and be something he wasn't. But his effectiveness as a coach was all about his authenticity. So to me, that'd be the main thing starting out.
Love it. Not too sure if I love this one, though, because it's from Sue from England. So I don't think we should be giving away tips on this one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What 1%ers do you think Australia have focused on that's made the difference and meant they have stayed a fierce competitors?
Yeah, good question. I think that probably when we go back to 2017 was a realisation that the team was not functioning at 100%, and we were playing a little bit timid cricket, and I think that showed. And when teams took it up against us, rather than taking a step forward, we took a step back. And we had a pretty, Mel knows about this, we had a pretty raw meeting after that, leading into the Ashes actually. And we played some vision from that 2017 World Cup, looked at it warts and all, and just, I suppose, the vulnerability that the group showed. So no one was pretending to be bulletproof, and that sort of bravado. It was a realisation that we were timid and we needed to change our way. And so the core value that came out of that was for us to be a bit more fearless. And that's a word that a lot of teams use, but we tried to articulate it in the way we played, the way we carried ourselves, and all things in our preparation, being more accountable. So it was, we talk about 1%ers. To me, team first and fearless are the two things that stood out for me the most that this team's done. And I think a great example, recent example of that was our World Cup. Elise Perry, household name, her dream was shattered out of the World Cup. She's in the bib, and I've got the photo here. I'm putting a document together. As happy as anyone that the team won, and you can't fake that. It was authentic, it was real, but that was just showed how much the team enjoys each other's success, I guess. And she had every right to. She could have just sailed off into the sunset, but she wanted to give back to the team, and not many people know this, but she wrote a note. She got the players' closest member that they were there to that player to write a note to them and have it for them when they took the field on that day. So little things like that have made a massive difference.
So it was her fault that I was crying on a plane writing to Molly Strano between the semi-final and final. Is that it?
It was.
Okay, right. I'll get it back for that. We've got, a household name in England for sure, and it should be across women's game as well, because Jane Power, former England captain and coach, has sent in a really, really good question here. Player-centred coaching is really important. How do you know when the players are ready to take more control, and at what stage do you think it's safe to allow them to fail?
Really great question, that. And it's a lot of gut feel, I guess. As I said, you got to know your group, so it does take time to build up that trust. I think that the core is behind it, that you've got to have strong leadership. And I know we've spoken about leadership group, but you need strong leaders to drive it. I think it's really impossible for a coach to be the only person driving it, and your support staff obviously play a role, but it's in those moments outside of the real coaching times where your senior players need to take up that slack. And so having the conversation and collaboration with senior players And then when you get that confidence, it's about it not looking perfect all the time, taking away that need for training and everything to be perfect. I think as coaches, we strive for perfection way too much, and a lot of the learning happens when it goes pear-shaped. But I guess the key then is to work out how to rebuild that. And so in terms of the second part of the question about when's it right to make mistakes, right from the start, I don't think they're learning unless they're making mistakes. And the job as a coach is to create environments where they're happy to make some mistakes in their training in particular, but even in games. So I go back to that the goal of ours is to play fearless cricket. That fearless cricket does not always come off, but then it's the coach's job to support the intent behind that. So, you know, Beth Mooney's a great example where we've spoken to her about one of her best shots to get going is to hit it over mid-off, and for her to have the courage to do that. Now, if she gets caught at mid-off doing that, rather than saying it was a poor shot, we need to dissect it a little bit, and if it was the right option and just poor execution, then that's fine, and you got to wear that. Another example recently is probably Elisa Healy, who went into that World Cup on the back of telephone numbers. She was like 5, 6, 8, 4. The media all over, and Mel included. But we just knew that her process was good, and she was hitting a lot of balls and in good form. And us as coaches just need to keep reinforcing that the way she was playing was the right way to play. It had served her well for the previous 2 years, and that she would emerge from it. So yeah, I think there's plenty of examples where you need to probably just support the mistakes, and it's not always easy. Sometimes you get frustrated when mistakes are being made if they're continually the same mistakes, but also understanding that players are human and they're going to do plenty of that. So our job is to ensure that next time they get in that situation, they take the right decision.
I might even get Holly to bring that photo back up again of you and Beth Mooney, because I would love to know why you're wearing a helmet.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
The reason I'm wearing a helmet is because of the Cricket Australia guidelines these days. And my compromise, if you look really closely at that, my big complaint was I couldn't see through the grill. So if you see it, look at it compared to the Beth there, I actually got the groundsman to saw off a little bit of that so I could at least see out of it. So it's unfortunately an incident happened in Australia where Gary Kirsten got hit quite badly by Darcy Short, and through OH&S rules that it's now a requirement of our coaches in Australia that we need to wear a helmet, which makes sense. There's potential for injury, but the other option is to put up one of those cages, the L-shaped cages in front, and I tend to do that if I can, but if there's not, I have to resort to the helmet.
There we go. While we've been chatting all things helmet, we've been joined by our other guest. We've worked out the wonderful world of technology and all the issues there. Anju Jain, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, and sorry about all that mishap, I think, with the laptop thing which has happened.
John Harmer was a former Australian coach and England coach for that matter, and he's saying to us as players all the time when we were touring was control the controllables. So that was completely out of your control. What is in your control now is answering the hard-hitting questions from a field and from me as well. Motty and I have been chatting all things cricket. I'd love to, because your pathway, we're going to go back a little bit here. Your pathway has gone from player to coach, and we know we've got quite a number of current players looking at transitioning into this role. I guess I want to ask you, first of all, was it always something that you wanted to do? And when it came to that moment in doing it, how did you set yourself up? How did you prepare for it?
Hi, Matthew. First of all,
No, we might have lost her. She's off my screen at the moment.
Am I back on the tools again, Mel?
I think you might be. I think you might be back on, Motty. She didn't like the question, obviously, that we were going to start with. But that's okay. That's okay. I want to. Okay, so we're talking about failure in the field. I'll just do this one while we can see if we can get Anju back on. You mentioned also at what point do you actually have to interject when that same mistake is happening over and over again?
Yeah, that's actually the great question in that as well, isn't it? And to me, we go back to connection. So you've got to understand your players, there's a way to disarm that conversation, I guess, and finding that in some players are obviously a lot more open to that sort of feedback and want it straight up and want it direct. Others probably needs to be sandwiched in a little bit better. Environment's an important thing. So the more over a coffee or a casual conversation where you can sort of slip it in and, you know, just open their eyes up to, you know, what do we need to do? Is there anything that as a coaching staff we can do to help you or find a new way to find the solution? But inevitably the players got to find their way. And yeah, I don't think that that's one of the obvious things and the common traits that I've seen in all the great players that I've played with, against and seen, is that they're great at self-reflection. And for everyone else, they need to be encouraged to do that. So if they're not self-assessing and a great example is someone like Jess Jonathan, who was talking about today, and she's very hard on herself usually, and just giving her a process to assess her own game and whether, you know, from a batting perspective, whether it was a shot selection or if it was a good ball or it was a decision-making error, and for her to be able to then compartmentalise that has really helped her and given her a lot of confidence to be able to debrief herself.
This is an interesting one, and one I think a lot of people have been trying to figure out the right balance too. I think a lot of the times when people look at the Australian women's cricket team, a lot of the comments I hear just around it is that they look and carry themselves as a lot fitter team as other teams. I think the fitness component has certainly improved right across the board. And Himadullah has put a question through saying, which Aussie female player is more serious about maintaining her fitness level? I know your answer to that one already. And can you share some tips with other players around the world about the importance and how you balance in fitness?
Yeah, I think the fitness side of things has improved out of sight. We've had some great influence from our sports and medical part of our business. And I think for me, it's relating everything back to the game and how improvements can be made. So whether it's your speed, so it's a run of 3 tests, 2K time trial, initially had a lot of pushback from players, but they can actually see results. And we do a cross section now of a battery of fitness tests, and all of them can find a way to find what they're good at, but they all relate back to being a better cricketer. And I'm conscious that I've been talking the whole time, so we'll put over to Anju.
Anju, we've got your back. Go.
Sorry.
It's been weird, actually.
So yeah, we were chatting about your transition from a player to a coach. What were your memories of that time?
Actually, to begin with, I never thought that I'll be a coach, because when somebody suggested I literally laughed it out. It was like that. And immediately after retirement, I was into the selection committee. I was the selection for the Indian team. Once I joined that, I immediately knowing that that's not for me. I really didn't enjoy it at all, the selections. During that, I think I discovered that for me, my more passion is being on the field, lively, on the ground. I think that's what I realized that my passion is. I cannot just sit on the sidelines and can watch the game. It's not going to be me. After playing, I think the second best thing which I can do is the coaching. So from there, I started, doing all the courses and everything. From there, it just transformed. That 2-year experience as a selector, I think that helped me and transformed me. Yeah.
It's interesting because I chatted to Matthew Mott about having the hard conversations with players, and you would have had to have done that on both sides, whether you're a selector or as a coach as well. Is that something that you naturally found that you did okay, or did you have to work away at it?
I have to actually. When I just joined and when I came, I know it's not everything is going to be same. When you're playing, it's totally different, that the way you approach the things. But once you come into the administration or the management, the entire approach changes. You need to approach people in a different way, the way the things needs to be, done, or, to discuss, even to the players also, the communication changes drastically. For me, I think, and for me as individual, it was a bit difficult because I think you've seen me, knowing me, that I've been a very introvert sort of person. So coming out of that, to making a shift, and it was a big effort for me initially.
Which is, well, I mean, we played a little bit against each other back in sort of around that 2004-5. I think we played about 9 games against each other, home and away. And to say a wicketkeeper is an introvert probably goes against everything that everyone has thought about wicketkeepers, because usually they're a little bit gobby and very chatty behind the stumps. So how was that something you had to work on in terms of your communication skills with players?
Yes, I have to make a very conscious effort, because communication is something which it's a prime thing, as a coach, you need to speak. And so I really worked hard on it, and slowly and gradually, I think I managed to do that, I guess.
I want to talk about 2018, because it was pretty much a landmark year in a lot of ways for Bangladesh cricket. You moved across there, different national team, different systems, different cultures, different players, and what a year. I'll talk about first the Asia Cup win, in which you've defeated India, your home country, and who you played for twice in that tournament. What were your memories of that in terms of, I guess, trying to take a team that has been just knocking on the door of international cricket to then all of a sudden defeating some of the big teams?
Yeah, it was, I think, just to be frank enough, it was really challenging for me on a personal listing, because the team was already touring South Africa they were on a tour for then I knew immediately after, once they are back, I have to join. And just few days before, I was supposed to join the team in Malaysia. So yeah, it was difficult, which is very challenging to begin with. First, I had just few interaction with the players. I've never seen those players actually playing in a competitive environment before that. And just in the first meeting, I still remember I just spoke to quite a few seniors and the captain about the things, and they said this is the order and that's how we play, those sort of things. Okay, I said just go ahead. So first game Sri Lanka, we played like that as per this thing, and we lost badly into that game. And then immediately I realized that things are not going to work like that way. We have to make changes, and the time was short. Now, we cannot do so many things. So what we did was like shuffling around some batting orders and the bowling combinations we did. And I still remember the one thing I told them in the meeting, the girls, see, just participating in any event is not going to be an option. You have to make an impact, just it's not done like you're just participating. It's, you need to make your presence felt. And I'm glad the way the girls responded. I think the rest is history. They really cherished those changes we're trying to make, I guess. We knew the skills are there, but the way they played those games and their approach totally changed. It was amazing, and we were also like very happy to see the kind of response we got from them. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Talk us through a response from the Bangladesh men's team as well, because that went viral. Them all standing in the room, just
yes,
biting their nails, waiting through every ball, and then absolutely going nuts when you defeated India.
No, I think like any other Asian country, you'll see that everybody is so passionate about cricket. And later, like after the game in the evening, we got to see those clips of the men's team, like dressing room and all. We were all so happy and so thrilled to see that they were also very keenly following our games. So that was a tremendous experience. Yeah.
I want to, Matthew Mott just touched on a couple of players that he enjoys coaching in Beth Mooney and Elisa Healy. I'd love to get your thoughts on a couple of the players within the Bangladesh side that you enjoy coaching and we should be keeping an eye out for.
I think just to begin with, I think everybody, in the last 1.5 years, if you've seen, all the girls have worked really hard and showed tremendous growth. But I've just chosen these two, Jyoti and Happy, for their different kind of approach, as the coaches, what the challenges we need to face. If you see the Nigar Sultana Jyoti, she's one character who needs all the information. She wants to know everything. The moment you walk into the ground conditions, the wicket, the air, the kind of opposition, everything. She needs to know all the intricacies. And that's how it will, she'll see a lot of videos that will help her to prepare better. And in the last 1.5 years, she's shown a lot of improvement, and she can be a future, a leader. I can see her a leader for Bangladesh into the near future, the way she has responded. So that's one character, we handle and that sort of thing. and the another one is happy, like exact opposite of it. She just wants to know what needs to be done, and she'll just ask one ma'am how to go about it. Simple. And then she'll work on it throughout, and she'll follow those things to the end. And that's it. She doesn't want anything more. And this thing, she tries to keep everything very simple in her approach and everything. And that's how it is. Like when happy, just one thing after the game, I have to ask her, happy, are you happy? Happy is happy. If she's done well, she'll say, I'm happy. If she hasn't done well, she'll say, I'm not happy. So that's the only thing you have to, like, happy is happy. Okay, then fine. That's all the things with her, like very simplistic in her approach and everything. But if you can see the growth she has shown in the last few months, like, that has worked for her. And Jyoti is another different character. She'll just eat your brains out for each and everything. For like, I need all the information, whatever you can give. So really enjoyed working with this contrast characters, I guess.
I cannot wait to commentate Bangladesh now, because I'm going to come out with so many happy lines. It'll just be, yeah, it'll probably be the worst commentary ever, but I'll love saying it. We're going to go back to a couple of questions from the field as well. And this has been one that's been quite liked by a lot of people. So Esther de Lang has put the question forward. Both of you are head coaches of your team, but we're talking here about what do you look for in the backroom staff, so your assistant coaches, and how do you manage those working relationships to support the team? Modi, I might start with you.
Yeah, another fantastic question, and I think it's a lot of it depends on the size of your support staff. I think, but what I would say is that where you can, and often as head coaches you don't actually get to pick your own support staff. Certainly, sometimes the organisation picks it for you, but it's certainly an advantage if you've got complementary skill sets. I'm big on the fact that I'm a very good, I'm a better batting coach than I am a fast bowling coach. So someone like Ben Sawyer comes in and is a very good bowling coach. And Shelley Nitschke is probably a great all-rounder. So she fits in beautifully. She's got the spin and the batting acumen, and also a really good fielding presence as well. But more to the point, we're just all very different personalities, and so each player in our squad, none of them could argue that they don't have a resource to go to that they can connect with. Ben's very quiet, very insular sort of bloke, and takes a lot of time to get to know him. But once he does, he's incredibly loyal and very analytical person. Shell's probably a little bit between the two of us. She's got that analytical side. Obviously, a great former player, which helps as well. So that breaks down a few barriers, and then I'm probably a little bit more relaxed and bit more global in my thinking as well. So I think between the three of us, we've got a good combination. We've had some great coaches beforehand as well in Joey Dawes and Tim Coyle, who's a very successful domestic coach here. So I just think it's about whoever you've got is actually understanding how you're going to operate together. So, and for me as head coach, it's not trying to be the answer for everything, and it's sometimes when questions are asked, it's pushing on to someone who knows better in that department. So taking a bit of the ego out of it and allowing and empowering your staff to drive the standards. So. Yeah.
Anju, I saw you nodding away there as well. How do you go about formulating your backroom staff?
As Matthew said, like most of the time we don't have that much of option of selecting our own support staff. But with BCB, I was fortunate enough, I think, that CEO, that he made it very clear, like you can have your own team, whoever you want, the qualified persons, or because for him also and for me also, I think that coordination and this thing starts with the support staff. If we are more coordinated and all, then only we can work well. We can work well as a team. So yeah, I try to get like Devika was there. I think Devika joined in fact before me, Bangladesh, and and we've played so well, like together and a lot together. So the courses and everything we've done. So that coordination is definitely there, and to back to that all of that knowledge and all which she brings along to the group, which is tremendous. Then I think Anuja was initially there as a physio. I could manage to get her, and then Kavita was there. One or two things like the local staff was included, and they also were very helpful. So that was it was a good team effort, I think, behind in the back room as a support staff also, because it's not only the players. I'll say all the support staff also worked really hard on them, and just to help them to prepare in a better way. So yeah.
I'm really mindful. We've got about 3 minutes to wrap this up. I'm looking at the questions on the screen and I'm like, yeah, I want to ask that, but we're probably going to run out of time. So what I can say to everyone is that the questions that we have that I was going to put forward to both Matt and Anju, we will put to these guys over the next couple of days, and we can feed that back through the LinkedIn group that we have at the moment, 100% Cricket. So your job isn't done yet, guys. I'm sorry. You're going to do a little bit of homework for us as well. But there's lots of questions there about, big one is about power hitting, also about the improvement of the domestic T20 leagues around the world and how that can fast track players and the like. So some great questions there. I'm mindful also that next week is all things innovation in cricket, and we have two of the best in the business in terms of innovation. Sophie Devine, who I know that Matthew Mott would love to coach at some stage because she is just a little bit of everything, isn't it? And a player that's taking both the game of cricket and the social media world, just taking it exponentially out of this atmosphere at the moment, is Jemima Rodrigues. So they'll be on next week talking innovation. Before I let you two go, though, I would love to get your thoughts on something innovative within the game that can help it progress a little bit further. Over to you, Anju, to lead us off.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about, I think 100 cricket is coming up, and talking of more involvement of having that sub players to be utilized, and some 10 overs aside and everything. But I think for me, if you'll ask, I'll just go a little old-fashioned way and just go backwards on this. I would definitely love to see, I know, a test championship for the girls. I know I'm just going out of context here, or the innovation thing, because it has become like nowadays most of the teams, they don't play test cricket, and I know I'm a little old-fashioned that way. I just still want to see that if we can, resurrect test cricket in women's cricket as well. For me, that will be like a great thing, because we all know how a test cricket can develop a cricketer. It can add dimensions, so many dimensions into your game. So I know I'm a little old-fashioned here on that thing.
Nothing wrong with old-fashioned, Anju. Don't you worry about that, Matthew. Matthew, that was very formal of me, wasn't it, Motty?
Okay, it is one of my things that I bang on about a lot, but I actually would love to see 50-over cricket go to 40 overs for females. I was lucky enough to watch 40-over cricket in English county cricket. I thought it was a superb product. I think there's a lot of spin-off benefits to it. I think it's a really attractive game. It probably gets rid of, like we always talk about, a few dead overs in the middle, and I do think it's an opportunity to really showcase the game. Batters can still get hundreds, bowlers can still get fives, so you're not taking away the fabric of the game, but it's probably a better viewer experience as well. You don't have to spend quite as long at the game. So that would be my big thing that I'd love to see, but I think our team's sick of me saying that. So.
They might be, but everyone listening in is probably the first time that they've heard of it as well. Anju and Matthew, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know there's so many people that we're looking forward to listening in today. Now, that's all the time we have for today, but I just want to remind everyone that there is one final poll for you to take part in. The link is on the screen at the moment, www.menti.com, and if you can use the passcode 60675. The question is, how can women's cricket innovate and lead the way for sport? So if you're listening live now, you can certainly take that poll. If you're not, it's okay. It'll be open till June 9, which is next Tuesday. So even if you're rewatching this at some stage, we would love to hear from you as well. A reminder, it's Jemima Rodrigues and Sophie Devine next week on All Things Innovation. Same time next Wednesday. We would love to see you. A reminder also that please jump on the LinkedIn group page as well, because there's been some fantastic discussions talking leadership, high performance, and hoping also now to add coaching to that as well. Thanks once again to Anju and to Matthew. Thanks for joining us. Please stay safe, and we hope to see everyone back next week to talk all things innovation.